and we're going live into the Successful Bookkeeper Australia. How exciting! Welcome, Laura, our guest for this week. We've decided, Pure Bookkeeping and the Entrepreneurial Bookkeeper, which is me, have decided to shake it up a little bit with Power Hour. Now it's once a month, and what we've decided to do is to invite an amazing guest every month to interview and ask some really cool questions. And just before we came on air, Laura and I were having a chat about some really cool things that we're going to talk about. So if you're on the edge and you're not sure about coming on and showing your face, please feel free to do so. And if you're watching this back in the recording, we're about to ask some really funky questions of Laura. Of course, it's going to be business-based, but there's some other funky things that we're going to be talking about as well. Welcome, Maurice. Welcome, Sandra. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you. So let's get started. I'd like to ask you a little bit about, welcome, Laura, and I'd like to ask you a little bit about your past and what got you to this point of being the CEO of Profit First. It's a pretty impressive title. I'd like to know, it is. I'd like to know your journey up to here. What was like, what's his name? The guy that developed Apple, that started Apple, Steve Jobs.
Oh yeah, Steve Jobs. Yeah.
Steve Jobs. He says you can only connect the dots backwards. You know, when you say, "Oh, how did I land here?" and then you look back and it kind of makes sense. So based with that kind of filter, you're now sitting here as CEO of Profit First and other companies as well. What's the journey to here? What happened for you to be able to get to here and realize the level of success that you've got now?
What a question. Firstly, I'm so excited to be here and I can't wait to dive in. I think it actually goes back many, many years, and it's before I even started my own business. And that was, I was of the mindset that there has to be other ways of doing things. And what I mean by that is I finished high school at a younger age than most people because it just happened with where I was that I was younger, not because I skipped years or anything like that. So I'm not proclaiming to be some genius or anything like that. It was just that my age was 2 years younger than most people. And so when I finished, I couldn't go and do the things that you could normally do because you're generally 18 and that sort of thing. But I decided anyway that I was going to go to Italy and live there for a period of time. And I could semi-speak the language, like I'd learned it at school, which really means you can't speak the language.
You were born in Australia?
So I'm Australian and I don't have Italian background or anything like that, but I had chosen Italy as the country that I was going to go, take the leap and just immerse myself and try and make something of it. And I did that, and everyone, even my parents, are like, you are nuts. We're going to see you in a couple of months. It's not going to go well because you don't speak the language and you are, I think I was 17 at the time that I decided to do it. 17, because I'd saved up my money as well. I've worked since I was 13. Anyway, so I went and I lived there. Since then, I've lived in multiple countries. And I tell you what, I thought I would die at one point because I'm like, this is hard. What was I thinking? I had totally overestimated how easy it would be to integrate and that sort of thing. But I lived in Israel, Italy, and Switzerland, as well as traveled the world. But what I learned there, and the reason I'm sharing this, is that I learned so much from other people doing different things that have got nothing to do with me. It's not business related. It's not anything like that, but it's a mindset. And I hung on to that. And I love learning from people. And I think through that, it has presented opportunities that never, ever, ever in my wildest dreams would I have thought I could do. And so, yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, that is so cool because it's kind of opens up a whole way of like a whole different way of thinking. And then you're exposed. It does. As soon as you cross that, that border and you get that passport stamped, it's like, just food, relationships, the way of being. And that's, as you say, it's a great way to open it up because I've always had that sort of thinking with everything in my life. Like I ran a marathon. I was like, right, what other chick has a full-time job, a couple of kids, juggling a whole bunch of things? What does she do to be able to run a marathon? So you sit down and say, hey, what did you do? What do you eat? How much do you sleep? How do you juggle the kids? Like, what did you do to get to that outcome? And it's the same thing with business. It's like, how did you become CEO of Profit First? So it's really like, and opening that sort of mind set around the possibilities and seeing what other people have done to get to there, which is, you know, the beginning, isn't it?
Totally. And not having to be the one to invent things either. Because how often do we sit in, I know when I started my business, it's like, all right, so I want to do this. And it may have been an onboarding thing. And I spent forever trying to work out the best onboarding process and blah, 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 and all of those things, when like, why spend all of that time if you could go and speak to someone who's already done it and then you tweak it to be you, because we're all unique. And instead, what I see happen is we either spend all of our time trying to reinvent the wheel, or we take exactly what someone else is doing and don't change it to suit us. And yeah, so it's also connected to that. I could go on forever about these things, so just shut me up.
Yeah, no, I don't want you to shut up. I want to hear every bit. It's awesome. Okay, so we're going to start with some fun questions. The first question I've got for you is, tell me the 3 most influential people in your life, so back in that journey, and how they've impacted you and why you would choose them.
Okay, so I get asked this in some format quite a lot. And I have to say it's something that I really struggle with, because what people are expecting as an answer are the great influences in the world and that sort of thing, when in actual fact, if I think about it, the 3 people who have influenced me the most are my mum and dad, because they've always said that I could do whatever I put my mind to.
Yeah.
My Italian mama, because she literally took a stab at, you know, there's this Australian girl who's come over and is crazy as hell, and she took me into her family, and I really feel like she helped me to shape who I am today. And the third is a woman in the US, Amber Duggar, who is also a Profit First professional, but is one of the most amazing women that I have ever come across. And she's continually inspiring, like, and showing up authentically as her. And I think those 3, well, there's 4 technically, people have really made a huge difference. And then of course it's the interactions with particular people in my business journey. And I honestly believe that if you approach things from serving, then you can only go forward, you know, and up, and whatever it looks like for you.
What
about you?
Sure.
I'm interested to know yours.
You're just turning this right on me. I've got to tell you, I don't know if you heard before, we've got a massive big storm, and it's just, I don't know if you heard that before. So if you lose me, you're holding this show, Laura. Okay?
No problem. You can do that. I'll start talking to everyone here.
Yeah, I've always been curious. So I grew up in a really tiny little country town, Western New South Wales, and I've always been trying to seek out the different people. It's like, well, because women don't look like me in small country towns in Western New South Wales. So I was kind of the different girl. So I was always searching for different people. And I think one of the first things that we did was find a business coach in our business when we were like, I was 22, I think, and he made us. I would not be sitting here today without Joseph, and that was 30 plus years ago. And we spent one day with that guy. So I think he's been a massive influence in my life. And then I don't know. I guess. I don't know. It's so hard.
Put you on the spot, haven't I?
Yeah, I know. I need to think about that. Okay, so the next question for you is, if you had to write a book tomorrow, what would you write that book about?
Well, I've written a book.
Oh, nice.
And it's an ebook. I haven't published it, but it is an ebook, and it pretty much sums up everything. And it's called The Abundance Equation.
Oh, nice.
But from a holistic perspective. So I truly believe that wealth isn't just about money and isn't just about who you know and that sort of thing. It's how you show up. It's your belief system. It's your mindset. And I do believe that we create our own abundance equation. And so, and I go from really practical sides of things, such as profit first and that sort of thing, to more of, I guess, if you're into it, the spiritual, or as some people call it, woo-woo mindset, whatever it is. And so, yeah, I truly believe that we're holistic and we are unique and we're individual. And so my book would be around that. But wealth, because you can do a lot in this world with money.
Yeah, and we were kind of touching a little bit on this subject before we came online today, so we want to dive into that a little bit later. So it's there's some really cool stuff. Laura is a cool I actually didn't realize how cool you were, so that's very good to know. The areas of interest that you've got though, because there's so much power behind that, isn't there? And it's something that we don't kind of talk about regularly, which is really interesting. So we're going to get to the subject today. So the subjects that we've advertised and that we are going to talk about briefly before we get into the other stuff is, where are you hemorrhaging in your bookkeeping business? What areas of you are you hemorrhaging in your bookkeeping business? So based on that, getting down to the nitty gritty and sort of getting as much out of you as we can around this subject, what's the most common thing you see that is a quick fix in the bookkeeping business around hemorrhaging? So if you think about cash, time, and team, so time, team, and money, what sort of things do you see?
The biggest area is generally pricing, because it comes down to pricing, and it comes down to pricing profitably. But more importantly, how you position your value. And I'm not going to go into value pricing or anything like that, but from understanding the outcomes and being able to speak to your clients in their outcomes. So what they're going to get from working from you, not the tool in which you're using to get them those outcomes. And we often as bookkeepers talk about our bookkeeping tools, our bookkeeping business, you know, the profit and loss and the balance sheet. And really business owners don't, and I'm a swearer, but I won't swear. They don't care a lot of the time until they understand why, what is the point of this? And so I think that it's generally pricing, because we can't clearly articulate what the outcomes are for our clients. And also a lot of people spend too much money too quickly on support.
Yeah, okay. And what sort of support do you mean when you say that?
Like staff members, they want to get out of the doing, and so they'll hire without really understanding, one, what's necessary to hire someone in terms of revenue and that sort of thing, but two, where you're heading as a business owner as well. And if you remove yourself from the business, what are you going to do? And is that going to bring in revenue? And yeah, it's just the clarity. We lack clarity. It's like the plumber with the leaky tap. I've been there before as well. I'm like, well, I'll just hire, because if I hire, then I'm going to bring in more revenue, when in actual fact, it did the opposite.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you say about pricing, because I know like kind of what you're saying is that ask the questions of the potential client to figure out where they want to go, like what they want to achieve with you working with them, to design what it is that, you know, that you're going to charge them to meet their needs, right?
Correct.
And also to make sure that we're looking at making a profit for that. So we know. So that seems like a pretty simple thing when you say it. Why isn't it simple? Why don't we do it?
I think there's a lot of jargon and noise when it comes to pricing in particular. And again, we're not trusting ourselves when it comes to knowing our own business. And so we're looking externally for someone to fix our problems. Instead, if we spent the time, and that's the other reason that makes this difficult, is that we generally, by the time we go, this is a problem, our time is minute. Do you know what I mean? And so it does take time to be able to sit down and go, okay, what's actually happening in my business? And I know a lot of bookkeepers that spend so much time taking care of other people's businesses that they ignore their own. And that also then compounds that effect.
So what you're saying really is it's as simple as just like I know with bookkeepers, they tend to fill up and you just keep getting referrals and referrals and you get busier and busier. So really what you're saying, it's as simple as we're just too busy to really look at our own business with the pricing to make sure that we're profitable. Correct. It's that simple.
It's as simple as that.
If it's, and obviously I coach a lot of bookkeepers and I see it all the time. So what would be a hack for you then, knowing that it's a simple kind of like, it's like, you know, the analogy with the little frog in the warm water, and then it boils and the froggy doesn't know that he's going to get boiled soon because it just slowly warms up. It's kind of that analogy. What would you say as that little froggy's warming up and it's getting to that boiling point? What would be a hack around knowing that where we could stop that? And so what would you say to help alleviate that?
Personally, I would even take a step back from that, because by the time you're warming up, it's almost too late, because you've established things in your business and you've created or you've made decisions around your pricing and how available you are. Instead, look at the idea is that if you are profitable enough, you're buying back your time. And that is really where the pressure comes in. And so what I do as a non-negotiable and what I teach other people is having that money date with yourself, not just for your business, but for your personal life, because we also lose sight of what we're trying to achieve through our business as well. And so if you have that money date once a week, or even once a fortnight to start with, or once a month, if you're like, I really don't have time, and be really clear about the one thing that you're working on then. And if that is pricing, then you don't have to get distracted. It's not that huge amount of time, because you do have the resources, you do know the people, you do have the support. And, you know, Pure Bookkeeping and you as, you know, the business coach and that sort of thing has so many resources available. That's not the problem. It's having the time to dedicate to knowing what you want to do in your business and make those changes.
Yeah. And so when you say money date with yourself, like, is there, and I know you gave me one example, but is like when you sit down to have a money date with yourself, what's your thinking? Like, what are the top 3 bullet points that you go, right, I'm having a money date with myself tomorrow, Friday. I'm going to sit down, give myself an hour. What would I do in that hour, Laura?
Yeah. So I incorporate that in my CEO review. And that's the other thing. Are you a worker in your business, or are you the CEO of your business? Because they're 2 different things and neither one of them is wrong. So if you're the worker in your business, are you in the best possible position to be earning the most money as the best worker in your business? Or if you're a CEO, are you working on your business and growing your business to the point that you have other people that run that day to day? Either's fine, but you need to differentiate that. Then, so like in my example, I am the CEO of my business. So I'm like, I have been in the nitty gritty. So don't think that I have not been where you have been. I definitely have, in terms of, and you as in all bookkeepers out there, I've been there where I'm just working, doing all the bookkeeping and never finding the time. So I'd sit down, and it is first a mindset thing. How am I actually feeling about my business? How am I feeling this week about my business? Because our feeling state controls everything. And if we're feeling positive about it, then the change feels a lot easier. If we're feeling negative, well, then there's something there. So it's that, and that doesn't, you don't have to sit there on a cushion meditating for half an hour or whatever. It's as simple as just checking in with yourself. Then it's looking, totally. And we don't check in. We'll check in with our best friend. We'll check in with our family. But we don't check in with ourselves. So that's the first non-negotiable thing that happens on my money date. Then I've implemented profit first. So I look at my profit first, my accounts, like what are these accounts sitting at? What do my expenses look like? What revenues come in? Where am I heading? Am I aligned with the goal that I've set in my business? Am I increasing that revenue? Do I have profitability? And again, what I look at may be different to what you look at initially, but it's determining what it is that's important to you to be looking at as part of your money date. And then what do I need to do to push that to do 1% better next week?
Ah, nice. So it's just a little step.
Tiny step.
Yeah. And what would be an example of one of those steps?
Well, an example would be like, let's say I've identified that my revenue or my expenses are creeping up because my revenue hasn't increased as I thought it would. Let's use that example.
Yeah.
What I've realized is I've been putting off that job of looking at the scope of my clients versus what I'm charging, because how much time is that going to take? Like, we're all been there. Do you know what I mean? But that's the one thing that I need to do next week. Just one thing of the 20 million things that I've got to do to help bring my forward. That's the one thing that I'm concentrating on. That's my 1%.
That is a powerful thing to do. That one right there is so important, because that's all about what you're charging, the margin, isn't it?
Yep.
So,
totally.
I absolutely love that. That's such good advice. So it's really just having that money date with yourself once a week, once a fortnight, once a month, however often. What would you suggest? Once a week?
I do it once a week because I don't have much time. And I only want to spend about half an hour. And I rather do it in bite-size pieces than sitting an hour and a half, because what I find personally is that if I spend 90 minutes on something, then I create this elaborate plan of all the things that I'm going to achieve, because it's proven that we as humans overestimate what we can achieve and underestimate how much we can actually get done when we set little tasks.
Oh,
So I approach it from Parkinson's law. Don't know if anyone here is aware of what that is, but whatever time you have is the time that you will take to fill. So if I have 30 minutes, it can be powerful. Whereas if I got 90 minutes, well, I'm going to crap on to myself for 90 minutes, aren't I?
Yeah. And that's, it's so true. I've tested that a few times and it's really, really true. But I love it. I must be strange because I absolutely love, it's Friday afternoons for me. And I check in, I go through all my accounts, I check in with where I'm at. It's fun for me. It's kind of like it's a fun thing. We all own our own businesses, right? So to do that, it's like, it's creating something. This is our baby. We can do whatever we want with this. And that's really the time when you get to go, okay. And if you're making one decision, like you were saying, for just in that next week, there's massive ramifications that can come from that in a positive way. So when you sit down next Friday to do your money meeting, things change quickly if you're doing those and building little by little on top of each other. That's really good advice. Now, I wanted to say, I don't want to hog Laura. So if anyone has a question based on that little meeting or anything, Steve, Helen, Sandra, Maurice, if any of you do have a question, please come off, show your camera and ask Laura or type it in the chat. I can see the chat there. So I'll just continue with some questions. Unless you've got a question, put your hand up and ask if you want. Go ahead. So my next question for you is, what does an ideal bookkeeping business look like from your eyes? And I guess the reason I ask this is that I know when I'm coaching bookkeepers, it's really hard to know what you want. And then when I paint a picture for my clients, it's like, oh yeah, I want that. But to know what that is, what would an ideal bookkeeping business look like for you?
Okay, so first of all, the one reframe that I have done is it doesn't matter what business it is, it's your business. Bookkeeping is the tool. And so what do I want personally? And personally could be, I'll give my actual example to make it easier. So personally, my mission is to have a lifestyle business or businesses. Okay. And that is to be having the time to spend with my kids, because I've got younger kids, to be able to do the date days with my partner, to be able to travel, because that's something that fills my cup. And that requires money. Yeah. And so then from me knowing what it is that I'm trying to achieve, what does my business need to do from an income perspective? Then I put it on, and I'm always going to have a profit first framework on top of things because I live it. From there, I kind of go, all right, well, if this amount is the amount of money that I need personally, if that's 50% that I have to take from my business, well, then I need double that to be able to pay my taxes, GST, have expenses, be able to get the support and that sort of thing. And so it's that reverse engineering. It's the starting with you, because you went into business for a reason. The other thing that I want for my businesses is to be able to give back, whether that is in time or in money. So one of the things that I do is I want to be able to offer a free session and not go broke over that, or be able to offer tiered pricing for people that are in a diverse background or something like that. Or one of the things that I do on a quarterly basis as part of my profit distribution is to actually donate to causes that are close to my heart. And again, I can only do that sustainably if I'm aware of what I'm trying to achieve and what that looks like from a really practical perspective.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So
it's really figuring out what sort of life you want and then working backwards to what you need to do in your business to get that life.
Absolutely, because I've been in my business before, in my bookkeeping business, where all I did was bookkeeping. I wasn't particularly enthused by it because I wasn't working with the people that I want to work with. The revenue felt hard because they were so freaking painful and I was spending way more time than what I was charging them. And I wasn't reaching any of the goals or the missions or the vision that I had behind the whole point that I was doing this in the first place. And it's so easy for that to happen because you get referrals, or you're like, I just need to make some money, because we're all at that point in time in our business where you need to bring in more money to pay the bill or whatever it is. And so you say yes to things that you otherwise wouldn't. And it is really about being clear. If you don't have that clarity, then it's really easy to derail.
It's one of my questions further on, but I'm going to ask it to you now. What made you break out of that? Like you were there. So what was the case? Because so many people stay there, not just bookkeepers, in business in general. We stay in technician mode. What was it where you went, no more, I'm not going to do that anymore, and then create this amazing business that you have?
I had none of the time that I wanted to have with my family. I was sacrificing all of the things that I thought were important to me and the reason I started it. And it got to the point where it's, make or break. I also realized that whilst I'm a very good bookkeeper, it does not fill my cup. Like, I prefer to be having the conversations with my clients, to really helping them on a deeper level to understand what they're trying to achieve, because, hey, I've been in the position too, where I got into business thinking that that'll be the key and it'd be easier. And I ended up in a very different place to where I thought I would be. So there was that, there was pressure. I'm also quite motivated. It's very easy. And this is one thing that I say all the time, and it helps me, is I say to myself, where am I comfort in the discomfort? And what I mean by that is, even though you don't like what you're doing in your business, it's comfortable. You know it. It's your day to day. And so why are you staying in that? And there's often something that's serving us within that situation. So being able to identify what that is, and then how you can integrate that into what the rest of it looks like, or let go of the things that aren't working or are hemorrhaging funds and profit like it can, or time or motivation to actually be in your business. And so that I know there's lots of moving cogs, but we as humans often stay in a really uncomfortable situation because it's known and comfortable to us. So how can you create that feeling in the unknown?
Yeah. So, and it is one of my questions later on, so I'm going to ask it to you now. What you did takes confidence, right? To say, because that little security blanket that we've got, like, we know this is familiar. And even if it's crap, and we know situations in life where people stay in familiar situations that aren't good for them. So it's not just in business. So we go, okay, so at least we know this, it's predictable. We can manage it if we can do it. So to step out of that takes a whole bunch of courage and confidence. Where do you get your confidence from?
I truly believe that it takes courage. I don't agree that it takes confidence.
No, tell me about that.
Because the reason being is that we're not all built confident individuals. We've all had different experiences, but what we tend to do is talk about our stories a lot. And instead, who can you have around you that can support you to make that one step that's giving you that closeness to that goal of yours? Who can you borrow some confidence from? And what I mean by that is, there are people you admire and they're doing things. You can take that and implement it in your business. And I don't mean that person out on the stage that you're never going to be out on the stage. It's not you, but there's something about what they do that you can integrate into your business. And that could be the way you feel about yourself, the way you approach yourself. Some people stand and do the power poses to make them feel a certain way, to then have that difficult conversation that you need to have. And if you're someone that needs to be prepared, well, then be prepared. Know what questions you want to ask. Know what the steps need to look like. Or if you're someone like me, it's like, if I'm over prepared, I'm not going to do anything because I go into paralysis. It's like, this is a decision and I'm going to leap. And that's what I do. And I'm like holding on here. But I'm actually an introvert. I know it doesn't seem that way right now. But I do find a lot of things difficult, but I've had to learn, and I've had the right people to support me to make that change and to do it in my way. So what are they doing that I could integrate as me? Because we're unique. And what is your superpower? What is something that you do really well, or that makes you feel amazing? And find a way to integrate that so that you then get the courage to make those changes.
I absolutely love that. I really love borrowing confidence. I've never heard that before, Laura. Isn't it good? Because my thing that I've always thought of, when you go and see like a read a book or watch a seminar or watch a YouTube video. It's like my thinking's always been, take the bits that work for you, because like a lot of people go, oh, that was just crap, or that, and you throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Yeah.
So I've always said, take the bits that work and flush the bits that don't. So you start getting that. But I love what you've said with borrowing confidence. So it's a similar sort of thing. You're borrowing the confidence. Okay, that's what I need. That bit there, I'll take that. And we all have those different needs, don't we? And also the whole thing of surrounding yourself with the people, they do say that we're the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And gosh, that holds to be true, doesn't it? Like the people you hang out with, it just makes such a difference. And to have somebody, like I made the decision, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It's like, when am I going to stop needing somebody to tell me that you've got this, Shaz, you've got this? And I made the decision, I'm never going to stop. Ever. I'm going to need somebody to tell me that all the time. So now I've just got a coach all the time. It's like, well, and it doesn't have to be a coach. It can be a friend. It can be a mother. It can be somebody to just say, I want to hear that every single day. And if that's if that's what I need, that's what I need. So that's borrowing something where, that gives me that.
Totally. Awesome. And one of the things that I learned from Aisha DeLune, who is a Profit First guide, so she guides Profit First professionals within our organization, and it really rang true for me, was that as children, we look at toddlers, for example, they're constantly trying things out and falling over, and they're not feeling bad for it, they're not being ridiculed for it. But as adults, we don't allow that for ourselves.
Yeah, it's funny.
Because if we fall over, well, then we're an idiot, or we should have known better. And in actual fact, no, that's not true. So if you can give yourself permission to be that toddler,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. Just take the step, and if it doesn't work, well, then it's the trial and correction, and so be it. And then that's how we gain confidence as human beings. That's how children learn to walk. That's how you then learn to speak. It's the same with business things.
Yeah. And it's the failure and learning from the failure and going, okay, I'm never doing that again. Let's try this way. And then, but it's always the same way. You see somebody that's made it and you go, that's them, not me. It's like, no, they've just been through a whole bunch more hurt than me.
Totally. And overnight success is years in the creation.
So true. So true. Okay. My next question to you is, do you see being the ultimate Profit First advisor as a standalone or a complement to being a bookkeeper, or both, and why?
I think that comes back to you, because again, our business should be based around us as the person driving that ship. And so it's a decision that you need to make. Like, do you offer bookkeeping separately to profit advisory, or do the people that you work with have to do both? And either decision's correct. I personally don't care if a person doesn't want to do bookkeeping with me, because my mission is to help them to create the business that serves them rather than them serving the business, to run a sustainable and profitable business in whatever. And when I say profitable and sustainable, it could be a $35,000 a year business, if that's what works for their personal goals, or it could be a multi-million-dollar business, but it needs to be profitable and sustainable, and it needs to work for you. And I truly believe that being that advisor is the only way to help people. Yes, bookkeeping is integral to keeping that data up to date, but it's often reactive because it's happened. You need to be helping people move forward, and you can do both at the same time.
So what if I'm sitting here going, that sounds like a fun thing to do, but it sounds a bit scary, like going in and talking to people and charging the prices that we know that, when you're stepping into that advisory sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, I get it. And we know that a lot of bookkeepers and accountants are doing advisory and not charging for it. So what's a good question? I want to say, how do you get the confidence to sell advisory? What's a better question than that? How can you frame it up with somebody to show them the benefits of what you do, and you feel really empowered around what you're delivering?
Okay. So it's actually really interesting. Before jumping on this, I was on another call, and what we were actually talking about was an effective discovery call, and it all ties in. Again, it was Aisha who was running that session for Profit First. And what we tend to do is skip our foundations. And so being able to know what is it that we want to offer, how do we work, and who is the person that we want to serve is at the basis of everything. And what happens is that,
could you just repeat those?
So those three things are, what are we offering? Yeah. How do we work? And who are we, like, who do we want to work with? Yeah. Because then it becomes a conversation then with the right people. And it works in discovery calls, but it works also in this instance. We get hung up on that word advisory and what advisory should look like. And so we can throw the shoulds out for a second and consider, what do I offer? How do I work? And who am I serving? Then it's not scary because you have that clarity, so that then when you have that conversation, it's like, hey, let's say, so because people talk to you about all sorts of things as a bookkeeper, all sorts of things. They're like, I didn't sleep last night because I'm worried about this bill, or I'm worried about the GST and I can't have another payment plan, or whatever it is. And so instead of going, okay, well, I'll get your bookkeeping up to date and then we'll do a payment plan and it's all good, you can be like, okay, can we talk further about, like, what is it that's stressing you out? What is the problem that you're really facing? Because it could be that, or it could be something else. And then from there, you can ask them questions. You can say, well, the way that I work is, and whatever that is for you. So for me, it would be the way that I work with my clients is to ensure that they're working in their business the way that serves them. And that means sleeping at night. And the way that I do that is through profit advisory services, which could look like one-off sessions to whatever. But before we even go there, I'd really love to understand what the problem is for you and what you're currently facing, and to see whether, as if we team up, we can move forward to create that outcome for you or to solve that problem. And it's not a sell. And that's the other thing, intention. So if your intention is to truly help someone, it's not about the sell, it's not about the sale. That happens by itself, if you know what I mean. Then
that's awesome. Helen's just asking, what are the three things to ask? I just found note paper, so I'll let you, I wrote it down, but if you could repeat.
It's not what you ask people, but it's what you need to know to feel confident in having a conversation, either about advisory services or having an effective discovery call. And that is to know what it is that you offer, how you work, and who you serve. It also then makes it really easy for that conversation to happen. And the thing is, not all of your bookkeeping clients are going to be your advisory clients, and that's perfectly fine. Stop trying to push shit uphill. Do you know what I mean? Like, but you then know who you need to be speaking to as well.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic way to look at it, because you're going in feeling empowered already, because you're talking to them about the things that you feel comfortable with anyway, and you're finding out from them what it is that they want, and if you can help them, maybe. And then you're not trying to.
It's not about us; it's about them.
Yeah, that's right. And you can go in a lot more empowered that way, because if you can't help them, if you don't have the skills or you don't have the resources to be able to do that, well, you just don't. But if you do,
and you refer on. Yeah,
and
that's valuable too.
Yes, that's right. So win-win all the way around.
Totally.
Yeah, no problem, Helen. Okay, this is the next question. You love people who are both skeptical and curious. Laura and I have got to know each other a bit in the last week, and she said this to me, and I'm like, oh, I've never heard of that before. I'm going to ask her on the podcast. So you like people that are both skeptical and curious. Tell us more about that.
So again, and the word skeptical often has negative connotations, as does the word profit, because a lot of people think greed or whatever it is like that. And so first of all, let's diffuse any negativity that you might have around the word skeptical, and I'll give you my definition. So a skeptical person to me is someone that doesn't just accept status quo, that will be willing to challenge a scenario and an opportunity, and I'll give you an example. I am a skeptical person, but not in the cynical, oh my God, this person said that, so I'm just going to literally say I'm against that for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I came across profit first, it sounded too good to be true. It really did. And so I was like, okay, I'm curious because I can see that the outcomes are happening for people, but I'm skeptical because there has to be a catch. And so the way that I approached it was implement it in my own business and try and break the system.
I love it.
Do you know what I mean? But in a nice way, because if I can't break the system, then I truly believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so if you can be skeptical enough to try it, and I think that's where I see issues arising for a lot of bookkeepers, is that you can be skeptical but not willing or curious enough to try things. But if you can try it with that, frame to ultimately get a positive outcome, well, then it sets you up to succeed.
Yeah, nice. I love that. Awesome. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting way to look at things, and it's a good explanation of it. Thank you. Okay, my next question is, what is your biggest pet peeve in our industry? What really bugs you?
Am I allowed to answer honestly?
Yeah, go for it. We love honesty.
Oh, my biggest pet peeve. No, go
ahead.
Go.
I was going to say, you sound like you want to think about it. I'll let you think about it. Do you want to think about it?
I do.
Okay. Maurice, you have said it all sounds great and sensible, but I'm not sure how I can start charging clients for advisory services when it's something I have always just provided in connection with bookkeeping. Yeah. And that's like most people, isn't it? I know I need to, but I think I need to restructure my fee schedule and separate different tasks and their value. Did you want to answer that one?
Can I jump in?
I've
got lots to say. Okay. So the first thing is, with your existing clients, you can change slowly over time. So what we tend to do is that's baby with the bath water and all of that. And what I see happen often is that we rejig all of our fees, and then we have to have all these really difficult conversations, and then people leave, and then we feel uncomfortable about people leaving, and then our revenue drops, and then we don't feel confident in getting the clients that we need to bring that revenue up. And then that's this cycle that we go through.
Yeah.
Instead, you can slowly change your current clients so that every time you do like that annual review of your pricing, you can introduce something different. So it's slow change over time. And that's going to be something that you just continually work on. But you can make this change effective immediately for anyone new. But you need to have the clarity around what your offering is, how you offer it, and who you serve. Because then you are only having to establish a fee structure and a conversation with new people that don't have that existing relationship with you, that, and you'll find that you'll have some clients that you can immediately say, hey, let's have a conversation. And this is what I do now, and this is how I do it. And based on your needs, this is what I think would suit you best. And that'll work. Others aren't your ideal client, but you've been working with them for X number of years. And so it has to be a really slow thing, but there's nothing stopping you from being really clear and implementing this with anyone new.
Yeah, the newbies don't know any different, right? Yeah. It's exactly the way that, and going back to the old people, and they know, your hourly rate or whatever, the fixed price or whatever, it's just such a bigger conversation, and obviously an important one to have at some stage, because you've got to, change your pricing structure at some stage. Yeah. But newbies have no idea. It's like, the second kid that comes into the family when you have your second child. They, the first one's already molded you. Like, they just come in and just go with the rules, So it's really, those new ones are a lot easier to test it out on, which is clever. Okay, your biggest pet peeve.
All right. So my biggest pet peeve is there's lots of whinging. Lots of whinging in the industry.
What are we whinging about?
About things not being fair, or it's being too difficult, or like lots of stories. Maybe whinging isn't the right word, but there's lots of stories from people around why they can't do something. And if you flipped it and asked, okay, what if there is no problem, or what can I do to change this? I don't see a lot of that happening. especially and I'm like not this group, but other bookkeeping groups that I'm in, it's all about the, oh, woe is me. And like life can suck. Trust me. If you had any idea what I deal with on a day-to-day basis, I agree. Life can be really difficult. Things can happen and it can make you feel like it's impossible, but it's only going to keep you there. You'll perpetuate it more, and you can't make change unless you're willing to see things in a different way. And that's probably my biggest pet peeve.
I think it's across all areas.
Totally.
Like with business, it's because I think when you enter into the business arena, there are going to be peaks and troughs. And there's going to be, it's tricky because you're stepping out of your comfort zone, especially if you have to learn how to sell and all the things that go on in business. It is tricky, but I feel the same way, Laura. It's the only way is to change the story, because that changes your attitude, right? When you change the story, it changes your attitude, which changes your results.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and it's a conscious thing to look at the sunny side all the time. I've had people call me Pollyanna, because I always look at the positive side. But that's it. I feel like, unless there's, because what looking at the positive side does is really open up your thinking to what could be possible. Whereas the negativity can keep you stuck, like what you were saying. So opening up to that more positive sort of view is a much,
and it
much
doesn't
nicer.
mean, it doesn't mean you have to be impractical either. So, and again, it's an assumption that we make that all those positive people are just positive about everything, and there isn't always a silver lining. And there may not be, but there's always a lesson. So what can you learn from it?
But that's the thing. I think as you get older, makes me feel like I'm in my 70s. As you get older, but you realize that the hard stuff is what makes you, right? You go through all that, you've lost a business and loss of husbands and things like that. And you get to the other side and you go, I've learned so much. I've just been doing a program this week with my clients, and it's called The Conversations in Our Head. And we talk about what lessons we've got from last year and what we can bring into this year based on what we learned from and we had to sum up in one word or a sentence what was last year. And I tell you, there was a lot of choice words in that, like, this is what last year was for us. And then it's like based on that, what have we learned? And then we went through, okay, now this is, and we literally wrote chapter by chapter by chapter the story for this year, which is new stories, new attitudes, new results to make 2022 your best year yet. And I know you said you don't swear, but I got to the end of one lady, she's quadrupled her turnover with me. And we got to the end of it yesterday, and she said, that was amazing, Sharon. Like, it was a real BFO, a blinding flash of the obvious, that the hard stuff from last year has given her this year the tools to be able to do the things that she needs to do to achieve the things in her business. So
totally.
The hard things we've got to have. I hate that we've got to have the hard things to do that. It's funny, isn't it?
Well, you can't really appreciate what you have. But the other thing that the hard things do is they give you a clear sense of your non-negotiables. Like, I am not doing that again. So and then you make decisions around that. Yeah,
that's right. And that was one of the chapters. So I never, ever have to again. And
Love
then
it.
you put that, it's such a cool process. Okay. The next one is, we have got a little while. What are the 3 books you would highly recommend based on, obviously our industry, that have really kind of stood out for you to go, that's my go-to book?
Profit First.
Yeah, nice.
I knew that was coming. But I truly do believe it's a framework that every business should implement. And I also think it's an amazing tool and bookkeepers are in the best position to implement it in businesses and make that difference. So Profit First is one. The second one that
easy read too.
It's so easy.
I'm not a reader, really. I try and I do read, but I struggle because I just want to talk to people. But it is an easy. I read it, so there you go. Sorry, continue on.
No, that's fine, and it's available in Audible and video as well. So depending on how you like to consume information, there's that. I read a lot, a lot. So when you said 3, what I'll say is, and this is rather than I'll come back to the type of books, but one of the things that really landed for me and that I've since implemented is I like to read to revelation. And what that means is you pick up a book because you generally have a challenge in your life or your business about a particular topic. Yeah. And so you go seeking out a book around that topic and you read that book until something lands that you can then action and implement. So you may never actually read a whole book, and that's okay, because you've got the thing that you need at that time to then be able to take that action and implement it. And
cool.
One of the things that I struggled with is that I would have so many books on the go and I wouldn't be able to finish the whole book or whatever. And I saw that as a problem. But once I started reading to revelation, for me, I solved the issues in my business and my life a lot quicker, because whatever it was that landed at the time, I could then take the action on. It also stopped the judgment around me not finishing books.
You've changed my world, Laura. I love this. It's awesome.
It's true.
All my half-read books. I can feel okay about that.
Totally. It's because we all need something at a certain point. And the thing is, you may come back to that book. How many times do we come back to a book that you've had for X number of years and you're like, I don't remember reading this the 20th time that I read it, and it lands. Do you know what I mean?
True.
And so I wanted to share that because and that's why it's really hard for me to say 3 books, because I choose to read the things that I need help with at the time. And I guess what I'm currently reading is a book called Fascinate. I will share, I don't have it on me, it's at home in my bedside table. But it's a way of being you and to help you with your marketing and that sort of thing, but it is authentically you. I'll send you through the details so that this can be shared with the recording. I'm also reading, I always make sure I have a fictional book on the go, because my brain is constantly thinking, and I think as bookkeepers, we're all a bit that way. And so I like to just step out because it brings my creativity back to perceived obstacles or challenges that I might be facing. So at the moment, it's about a 100-year-old guy who escapes out of his nursing home. Random, but it's good.
Oh, nice. I love that. That's awesome. And I love
Influence.
Sorry?
Influence is the other book that I've got on the go.
Influence. Okay. I've heard of that. I think I've got that book up here. It's all just, is it? Influence. Is it this one?
Yep, but there's an updated version of that, which is like with how-tos and all of that. That's one of the freaking amazing book, because it is about being persuasive about your mission or what you stand for or whatever it is. So yeah,
there was a tip in this. There was a tip in this that I used to take to my accountants meetings when I was building the bookkeeping business, and that I read that years ago. It's fantastic. So yeah, I love that.
Revised version.
Yeah, okay, I'll have to get it. I love that you were talking about with Fascinate, because, you know, to help you be, you know, your authentic self. And it's why is it so hard to be, you know, so often throughout life, it's like, just be you. And it's like, yeah, if it was that easy, I would. And it's like, honestly, when you step into your own boots and your own skin and just be you, it makes it a lot easier. So that sounds like a really cool book. I've never heard of that before.
I'm just getting it up. So it's Fascinate. By Sally Hogshead, and she's done a revised and updated version. I read this when she first brought it out, and it's how to make your brand impossible to resist, but it's really about being you.
Wow.
And like showing up, identifying your strengths and being authentically you. And therefore it's not about selling, it's not about learning to market or any of those sort of things. And it is hard to be you, because we often move so far away from who we are because of the way we've been brought up, because of our experiences in our world, because of many things. But yeah, I guess it's always give yourself permission to check in and say, is this really something that lights me up? Is it really me? Do I really want to be doing this? Because we are often programmed to do what we should be doing.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's just self-protection a lot of the times. You get out into the world and you go, yeah, I'm ready for the world. And then you just get like cannon fodder from everywhere. And then you can mold yourself into this person to be able to cope. And then all of a sudden you turn around, 20 years down the track and you go, oh, this is not me.
Totally.
It's really tricky. Sandra, you said a wise person once told me life is about solving problems after problem. Accept it and start solving problems and build your confidence and muscles in this process. A thing a lot of us sink into is non-acceptance mode, e.g. it shouldn't be like this. Yeah, good point,
Totally.
Sandra. Yeah. We have 5 minutes and I would like to ask you, there's 2 questions. Can we do them quickly?
Sure.
The three top I know, pressure. 3 top podcasts you listen to.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a hard one because I'm a podcast jumper as well. I don't listen to
you've given me permission to do that now.
Again, so the way I podcast is either by recommendation, because I've had a conversation with someone or I've heard someone say something, and so I'll jump in and listen to that, or I'll go on and I will random select.
Okay.
And I'll just, no, this doesn't land, and I move on. And I learn so much because it's not doing the same thing, which is the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
But there are, of course, podcasts that are great, but I'm not going to list them because I've learned more from learning about different people that I never would have known about because I randomly select things.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. And even just, I think your insightfulness around how you read and even how you go about podcasting. I mean, just that to me, because I look at the list and I go, I want to listen to everything. And then I've got a go-to. There's a go-to that I just listen to all the time. But I love the way that you approach that. So that's cool. So my signature question for you is, what advice would you give yourself 1 year prior to nailing your business model and becoming the success you are now? So you're wading through the treacle and you're thinking, oh my God, when am I going to bust out of this? And you're feeling heavy, if you ever did feel like that.
Totally felt like that. Yes, been there. And here's the thing, and this is what I continue to say to myself, is that business, life, and self is an evolution. So it's a journey. So the point is, you're always going to face the same things that you find difficult, just at a different level. So what feels really, really heavy now, you'll come across again, but you'll be equipped to handle it differently, to move through it. And so what I would say to myself is, this is a journey and it's an evolution, but do you have the tools to be able to move through this when you face it again and make the right decisions for you?
Yeah, nice. I love that. So check in with yourself around what tools you've got to be able to help you get through that, because you know that it's not going to go away. It'll come back in a different form somewhere down the track.
Totally. And I'll give an example. So I'm actually a workaholic.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm okay with it, but it's also something that puts pressure personally on family and that sort of thing. And so every single year at some point, this becomes a thing again, because I've slipped back into that stupid prioritizing of work when it doesn't need to always be work. And so that's when I kind of go, this is a journey and I'm never going to be perfect, but what tools do I have to put in place to ensure that I don't slip back into this again? And so that's
and that's coming from a real positive point of view.
Totally.
This is happening. What can I do to make sure that this, that I'm well equipped? That's looking at positive, looking forward. Where our time's up. I have absolutely loved our time together today. You've given me so many gold nuggets. It's been awesome. If anyone has any questions of Laura, we've got like 2 minutes to go. I know I've sort of hogged it very much today, but thank you so much. It's been awesome. It's really, really been good.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed just answering the questions. I feel like all I've done is talk. So I hope that it's been helpful, and I'm really, really happy to answer any questions as well that come up afterwards, because I know that sometimes things have to percolate before you know what you're wanting to ask. So I'm very happy to be tagged in the post and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah,
So thanks for having me. I've had heaps of fun.
It's been such a fun time, and I'm sure, and Sandra said fantastic, thank you. Maurice has said thanks so much, didn't really seem to stick to the topic, but very engaging and helpful nonetheless. Very good, Laura. I know. Well, welcome to Sharon's ride. I don't ever stick to the topic. We had to get things to make it interesting and topical for bookkeepers, but hey, I think it's interesting to sort of open it up to these sort of things.
It all plays into where you're hemorrhaging in your business though.
Yeah, that's right. True.
We'll have a separate conversation.
I'd love for you to come back, Laura. So that'd be awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being our first guest for Power Hour this year. And yeah, thanks everyone. Much appreciated. See you later. Bye.